Okay, my good friend, Orluff Opheikens.
There isn't a better friend in the world. I couldn't have a better friend than Orluff Opheikens.
I get emotional when I talk about people or things that are important to me.
Okay, so how do I describe Orluff? Orluff, as far as I'm concerned, is a force of nature, honestly. He's not like other people I've met. I can pick on one hand, if even that, people who have had an effect on me, who have actually been role models for me, or God forbid, a mentor to me, and Orluff is one of those.
Orluff is the kindest, most giving, most gentle man probably I've ever met.
He is a hard worker. He's driven. He doesn't let anything stand in the way of his success. When he has problems that come up, he always finds a way to get through it.
Modest, unassuming, produces more than he talks.
And I would say he's extremely kind, he's extremely giving, and he's complicated.
He's unpretentious, he's not conceited or vain, always open, always friendly.
Orluff is one of those people that you look back and if your lifetime you've got the opportunity to have 4 or 5 good friends, I think you really had some.
You know, it's hard to describe somebody like that other than they're people that you come across in your lifetime that you want to be like and you want to emulate and maybe pick up from.
Orluff is passionate, fearless, dedicated. He's a community guy. Family is really important to him, and he's somebody who wants to make a difference in the world.
He's everything I would want in a friend. Loyal, generous to a fault. It's good when you have a friend that not only tells you about himself, but asks about your life.
He's very compassionate. He helps a lot of people in lots of ways, financially, and just by using a lot of his time to help them in different ways. And he does it quietly. I won't even tell you who these people are, because he wouldn't want anyone to probably know that he helped them.
He's one of the warmest person I ever met. He is honest, he is fun. I love him.
And Orluff, I know, is one of those guys that if I needed something, if I was in trouble or whatever, I could call him and he'd be there. Wouldn't matter if I hadn't seen him for 5 or 10 years. I know that he's out there.
Orluff has been a huge part of my life. He's made a big difference in my life in a lot of ways. As I was pondering some of the things that maybe I'd want to talk about today, it helped me to realize all the things that he's done for me in my life. I don't think I could ever repay Orluff for what he's done for me. You know, real estate has been my life occupation. I'm still doing it, you know, and he got me involved in real estate 45 years ago. And so Orluff's really been a big part of my life. He's made a huge difference in my life. My life would have been really a lot different without Orluff as a friend.
When I heard that I could maybe talk about Orluff on a video, I emailed a couple of our old girlfriends and said, "What do you remember about Orluff?" And I thought this was pretty interesting because they said similar things, of course, to what we've all said. But one friend, Marilyn Cottle Suttlemeyer, he'll remember, she knew him at Weber. She knew him in high school, but she also went to Weber and knew him in college. And she said, I don't know if I have any stories about Orluff, but I will say that he was the most unassuming, fun to be around, grounded, kind person. And nowadays, he's so proud of his kids and he's lived such a great life. And she thought she had nothing to say, but what she had to say was so typical of those of us who care for him.
His family didn't have a lot of money, either did mine. My dad was just a government worker. His dad worked for the railroad. But his father had a job that was a good job. He always had a salary coming in, and he was a good provider. His father was a very hard worker, had a very sweet mother that I remember her. I loved his mother. Their home on 8th Street, as I recall, originally it was just a basement. Back in those days, people couldn't afford to just build a home up from scratch, so they built the foundation of a basement first, and then later on started adding the rest of the home.
She said, Nancy, you don't live around here. You don't see how widespread his work is. If you drive around Ogden, Wyoming, Nevada, you're going to see construction sites everywhere. And she said, he's such a great guy, and he's so deserving of a tribute. And I will say one other thing. He's aged really, really well. So I thought that was a great compliment. So that sleepy-eyed boy of age 16 or 17 has turned into a great-looking man who, even at our slightly getting older time of life, he's still really great-looking.
I'd have never dreamed that Orluff was going to turn out the way that he turned out. I mean, nobody from our neighborhood would have ever thought that somebody had that kind of success. I mean, he went up to Weber State, and I think he was involved in student government there, and may have been involved in student government at Ben Lomond too. But I just remember him as a guy that was really cool driving in the neighborhood, and he had that great car and that sort of thing. But he was always nice to us. I mean, a lot of the older guys would kind of pick on you and be a jerk. Orluff was never like that. I got to know him better as we got older, particularly through our association at Weber State. But it was quite amazing to see how lives intersect from time to time.
His first car was an old 47 Chev. Paint, there wasn't much of it left. Gray in color. Mine wasn't much better. Mine was actually painted with a paintbrush, believe it or not.
Kind of worried me a little bit at that time. He found out that it cost money, to get tickets. So after that, he started and got better at it.
Next car I remember he had is he bought Terry Sparrow's old green 55 Chev that was absolutely beautiful.
There's a new era in automobiles. It's the new Motoramic Chevrolet. What's new? Everything.
It had been redone. It was probably the envy of all of the boys at Ben Lomond. And Orluff bought that probably towards the end of his senior year, as I recall. But he was so proud to finally have a car that he could go pick a girl up in.
In those days, there was a lot of, two-person paired-off dancing. And Orluff always wanted to dance with me, but not because he liked me. I've teased him about this a million times. It's because he liked some of my girlfriends.
He spent a lot of time over at Ogden High School dating various girls. He used to go down to Davis County, Clearfield High School. He got around a heck of a lot.
We really hated the guy.
He and I didn't do so much together because I was scared of girls in those days.
He was always over to Ogden High dating the girls. And for some reason, he had a certain magic about him that he still has today.
But Orluff really ended up being a ladies' man.
He would always want to know. He'd dance kind of close and whisper in my ear, who's this one going out with now? Who does this one have for a boyfriend?
If you look at our yearbook, and I've got the yearbook here, you'll see that he got involved in the ski clan and the dance clan. Main reason? He liked being around the young women, and they softened him.
We'd be going along in the yearbook, and I say, "Who's that? He's asleep." "Oh, that's Orluff Opheikens."
There's the famous yearbook picture that we all love to talk about where he was asleep.
Everyone sneaked out of the classroom very quietly, and the teacher went out to the to the yearbook staff, got something to come up with. And they patiently waited and waited and waited until about 4 o'clock. Orluff finally woke up.
Now, if you took Orluff Opheikens there and Orluff Opheikens now, you would never in your wildest dreams imagine that he has built an empire.
I asked him some years ago, you know, why in the world did you always sleep in school? You always looked like you were dragged out of bed, and I can't even believe you got good grades because you just slept through everything. And he said it was because of his horse. And I didn't know he had a horse. I grew up nearby. I don't remember a horse.
He's always been a great horse lover, and he needed to take a horse to the vet. Not having a truck or trailer back in those days, he thought the smartest thing was to do is to tie it behind a car and drag it to the vet.
He said, Nancy, how could you not know? All I cared about was my horse, and he was up late tending to the horse and up early to ride the horse or whatever.
And so rather than tie it to the car, I held the horse reins out the window and he drove the car as we took it to the vet. And we still laugh about that. Although he forgot about that, I had to remind him.
One thing that we've followed up on is that I love to go to the Ogden rodeo, but I never knew that sometimes they'd flash an advertisement for RO Construction. See, I don't even know for sure the name of his company.
He's got an empire. Nobody knows about it. People know what is that? Owen something construction. Hell, I don't even know what it is.
I only found out later that was Orluff. And once he knew I liked the rodeo, now he's always trying to get me to go to Las Vegas to go to the National Rodeo Playoffs. And he sends me pictures on Facebook of great rodeo, campaigns. So that's a new part of Orluff to me, even though we grew up together.
All I know is that he probably owns the bank where he's got all his money. But so I see this picture, and Nancy's kind of stuck on it, and they all talk about that picture of him. What they don't know is that he's thinking about becoming a very successful person. He probably knew he was going to be it.
As a young man, he became very involved with pigeons.
You could take a flock of birds and teach them to go fly, and they'd fly for about an hour, and they'd go up in the air and they'd flip somersaults. They were really fun to watch, and I did that for several years.
He had one, there was a group of them that he called rollers. That means they'd get up in the sky and then just kind of turn somersaults. He had homing pigeons. He had one type of pigeon after another.
Although my neighbors, I'm not sure they were too tickled about it. They used to hang their sheets at the time out on the clothesline, and sometimes those pigeons would use them for a target. But they were wonderful people, and they didn't laugh, but they didn't get mad. So anyway, touch of memory.
He absolutely loved pigeons. Now, what did the rest of us love as young men in 6th grade? We loved basketball.
And I remember I went out we were all getting together. I can't remember whether it was in Ben Lomond's gym or in Orluff's church gym. I can't remember where it was. But I remember I walked in and I saw some really good athletes there. There was Harold Prince, there was Steve Rose, there was Steve Ekstrom, there was me, and there was Orluff. And I was very surprised. I thought, Orluff playing basketball?
He had on work boots to play basketball. Work boots, the rest of us were in our scrawny tennis shoes, and he had work boots laced up to the top.
There's Orluff, he's gonna play,
He struggled dribbling the ball. He really struggled shooting the ball, but he realized then he enjoyed basketball. And so I saw Orluff put in great amounts of effort to hone his skills. He ended up being a very good basketball player.
And then I watched him. I remember looking at him, and he was standing out there about where the three-point line is now. And he shot 6 or 7 jump shots, and every one of them went swish. And beautiful jump shots. And I thought, this kid's good. And I never even knew he played. And I know I asked him later, I says, well, Orluff, when did you start playing basketball? And he says, oh, I just started last year. And I thought, my God, this guy started last year and he's better than the rest of us,
And again, for a kid that couldn't hardly even walk on the court, it was amazing to see the skills he developed. I have a picture here of Orluff in a church basketball team. There is Orluff right there on this side here. I happen to be next to him. That church basketball team, we won the Ogden area, and we went to what they called the all-church tournament in Salt Lake.
So, and I think, and like I said, I think that was one of the things, the first tip-offs to why he was successful. And I noticed a lot of things, I think back now, as to why he's successful. And I noticed them then, but I didn't really think they were things, I didn't think these are things that are going to make Orluff successful. But looking back on them, I can see they were. And that was the first one. Orluff decided to play basketball. And in a very short period of time, Orluff was a good basketball player. If he made up his mind to do something, Orluff did it. And I've seen that throughout his life. That was the first time I ever saw that.
Somehow in there, he just kind of coasted under the radar. And I definitely would have been very surprised, and was surprised as I later found out about some of his achievements. He just played it close to his vest, and we didn't know, any of us, what a great guy he was going to turn out to be.
And I always remember Orluff working. And I know he worked down to J.W. Brewer Tire, and he always gave credit to Rich Brewer for really teaching him how to work and teaching him the value of work and the integrity of work.
So many people are content with coming home and watching hours and hours of football or going to games and watching games. That wasn't Orluff. He's the kind of guy that he's got to be in the action.
I got a job to put myself through school working as a switchman down in the railroad. Orluff was there. He had worked for the railroad for probably 3-4 years. And not long after I'd been there, working the extra board, getting called in at 11 o'clock at night, all the shifts nobody else wanted to work, I ended up working on a crew where Orluff was the foreman. And about 4 o'clock, we went in for lunch. I was tired. I hadn't taken a nap. I hadn't slept probably since 2 nights because I worked the night before. And I told Orluff, I'm going to go in, Orluff, and just sleep in the car rather than have lunch. He said, all right, I'll come and get you. And I hit the front seat with a pillow there, and I was out. The next thing I know, Orluff was over pounding on the window of the car. I jumped out and I grabbed my gloves and started out to the field. He says, where are you going? And I said, I'm sorry. I'm glad you knocked on the window. He said, don't worry. He says, I made the last few moves. Go home. And for a guy who is tired, I've never forgotten that. And over the years, Orluff and I have each carried the other person's load.
Okay, I was working at the railroad, and my wife and I, at that time, were trying to buy our first home. And there was a guy named Dave Smith down at the railroad that sold real estate on the side. And I always kind of had an interest in real estate because my grandfather kind of had always talked about that throughout my younger life. I think that's maybe what he would have liked to have done in his life. We started talking about me getting into a real estate, getting a real estate license and selling real estate, and that's how I got involved in that. Back in that time, it was kind of difficult to get them to accept us young guys because everybody in the real estate business, they all wore suits. This is back in the 60s. They all wore suits and ties. And they were all older. I mean, you almost felt like you were going to the mortuary when you went to a board meeting.
Orluff came to me when I very first got married, which was in 1973. And I'd married a beautiful young woman, and he came and we had a little place we had rented, and he came to me and says, Kurt, I can't let you pay rent anymore. He says, that's the biggest mistake you could make. He said, I'm going to help you and Cammie get started in life, and I'm going to find you a house. So he did, and the house had been lived in by a motorcycle gang. And the inside of the house was all painted up with drug paraphernalia and all this kind of stuff. But it's something we could afford just starting out. And he got me to buy it. And unlike most people that just kind of move on, they got their commissions as done, Orluff came and helped us paint and help us wall text and helped us clean and helped us do everything in order to turn that house into a livable place. And I've never forgotten that, neither has my wife.
So anyway, during that period of time, I had an opportunity, had a good friend named Tom Welch, who is the individual that put together the Olympics for the state of Utah. Tom was a really good friend of mine, and we had built 2 or 3 homes for Tom over the years, and he was now the vice president of Smith Food Kings. He was really great about if he heard of something or saw something or anything, he could help us. He was just always there for us. One day he called us up and asked us if we could build a Chinese kitchen in a Smith Food King grocery store. And of course I said yes. And shortly thereafter I asked my guys, what's a Chinese kitchen?
I gave Orluff his first grocery store. And that was a big thing because I was the general counsel for Smith's, and I was over construction and acquisition of properties. And so our construction team, I told him I wanted him to give Orluff a chance. And Orluff went in and I said, Orluff, I can get you 1 store, but you'll have to earn the rest.
We bid the project. Problem was we left the brick out of the project, and as you know, a Smith food store is all brick. So here we are in our first big project, and we're losing money. I mean, we're going to lose a lot of money, and it's at a time when we're struggling. And Tom had said to us, listen, I can get you out of the bid, but I'll never be able to walk you through the door again. So you're going to have to make a decision. You know, that's the most he could do. Our guy said, you know what, we'll build it. We'll get this thing built. We'll work day and night. We'll work double shifts if we have to. And they did. That was the good news. The bad news was it was one of the worst winters we ever had in history. And literally we shoveled snow all winter. It was crazy.
And Orluff did, and he's still building Smith stores today. But I can remember around the office, I was always kidded about the guy who's building our stores is Tom's home builder.
There was a grand opening that I'll never forget, and I think this is one of the key moments in our career, my career especially. We were at a ribbon cutting. D. Smith walked over, and I didn't know who D was. D was Tom's boss, but I knew who he was, but I'd never met him. I'd seen pictures of him, but I'd never met him. Anyway, when he walked over to me, he walked up, he shook hands with me, and he said, hey, you guys, you did a great job. I want you to know that through this whole process, I bet on Tom. There was other guys betting against you. You did a great job. I won my bet. He said, look, we're going to build a 90,000 square foot grocery store down the street. You're going to build it. We're going to negotiate it. I understand you lost money on this project. We're going to make it up here on the next store. You do me a good job, I'll keep you busy. And that really was a terrific opportunity for us. That was the start of Arno. In order to do our first Smith store, we had to get a bond. Now, I didn't even know what a bond was, So anyway, I knew it was something to do with insurance, so I went to my insurance guy, and he didn't know either. The main thing we had to do was we had to put over $100,000 cash in an account, and it had to be a different corporation, and that corporation was how Arno Construction was formed. I didn't have all that money. I had about half that I could raise. And so anyway, I was down fixing fence with a neighbor named Les Randall at the time. We'd become very close friends. And I remember we're putting a gate up, and I'm standing on one side, ratcheting the bolt on, and he's on the other side doing the opposite direction. And I told him what we were going through, and without even blinking, he said, well, I'll have some money for you tomorrow, and we'll just make this work. And that was the start of Arno Construction Company.
And what was very heartwarming to me as I got to know Orluff is to see this bond that he had had with Les Randall. Jack Schoenhals described it as Randall was Orluff's, the father Orluff never had, and Orluff was the son he never had. They raced horses together, they started R&O together, they were very close friends from what I could tell.
But most people who knew Les Randall thought of him as a farmer. He wore bib overalls. Generally, one would come across here because the other one had lost the hook. There might be holes in his knees. You just would never dream that he was really the successful person that he was. He had money in the stock market. He was just a really excellent businessman. But if you didn't know him, you'd never guess it.
When the market crashed in the 70s and interest rates went up to almost 20%, Orluff was building a lot of homes. And he had stuck his neck out and taken a lot of risks to build these homes. And he was financing things through Prudential Federal Savings. And a lot of people didn't dare take any risks at the time because of the market, but Orluff was still building houses.
There's probably at least probably 5 times that this company shouldn't be here. It really shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be talking, okay? That close to being history, during the making of this company. It's just that dramatic, where zero work, zero money, you know what I mean?
We lost more value than you did during the Depression. We lost almost 45% of market value. And Orluff had I think he had 16 homes and I think 12 condos out at Ridgemont, out by the Ogden Regional Hospital. And him and Bruce Nilsson, everybody else went broke. Orluff was so deep into the savings alone.
Frank and I took a 30% pay cut. Orluff took a 100% pay cut. We asked the guys, there was only 4 or 5 of them left, to take 10% pay cuts and make it through the very beginning of, R&O.
Orluff went into Prudential and he had all these keys to these houses and these condos in his hands. And he said, I know I'm not paying you back as fast as I can, but I will give you 2 choices. You either work with me to pay back these loans because everything's crashed and I am still going to pay you back, it just might take me a little longer. Or you take these keys and you own these houses. Here they are.
So, which do you want to do? The guy said, here, you take the keys back and we'll fund you to get them finished, So, he, not too many people pull that off.
And that told me how bold Orluff could be, but he was willing to give them a proposition to work with him and he would make it good. So he's so honest and straightforward. I don't know how many people would have the courage to walk into a savings and loan and give them an ultimatum. But it was something that he thought he had to do, and he did it. And he paid it all back, and they worked with him. They didn't want to own the places, and they worked with him. So it wasn't that black and white, you either pay me back or not. Orluff just said, work with me, and if you'll work with me, you'll get all your money, and they did. And that's just, he's very honest, he's very straightforward, he takes risks, but it isn't so black and white that you don't sit down and you can't sit down and figure out a better way to do it. And that's exactly what he did with them. And so impressed by that.
He was always sitting in this brown chair, and he's always has a notebook, and he was always writing whatever he was writing down. It was just, I assume, it was work, is what I thought. What I learned later, probably more recently, was what he was doing was going through, because the market had crashed, people money for whatever he owed, but he had told me that each night he was sitting there figuring out, what do I need to sell so I can make sure I pay my bills? You know, and that when you're a kid looking up, it's just all your dad's working again. But knowing what I know now as a father, he's literally doing, what do I need to do to make sure my family still has a good life? Because we never went without anything, and we probably never realized how hard his job was and how hard the economy was at that point, to be in real estate and to be a contractor and literally nothing is happening. You know, I don't think I ever fully appreciated what he was doing as he sat there, you know, just crunching numbers to say, do I need to sell a car so that I can make my bank loan? You know, those are a lot of the experiences that I had with him that helped me today.
The first memory I have of Orluff I can remember very distinctly. We went to this taco maker, and I can remember sitting between Orluff and my dad. Orluff was on one side and in the passenger seat, my dad's in the driver's seat. And they'd pulled over and they were talking. And I remember Orluff like watching in the front seat because his leg would shake, like his knee bounced like the whole time, like very nervously. And that was just interesting to watch for me as a little kid. But I remember them talking and my dad encouraging Orluff that everything was going to be okay. Because I think it was like in the early 80s or something like that, and the market was just horrible. Something was really bad. Orluff felt like he was going to lose everything, and they were talking about that, and my dad was saying, it's going to be all right. You know, this has happened before in the history of our country, and you're going to make it. Years later, to see what he's been able to do and what he's built, it's incredible. It's kind of a testament.
And the snowfall of 1983 had that snow not come, I'm positive as I'm sitting here, we wouldn't be in business today as it is. We were out of work and the snow came and started caving roofs in. And they started calling and we shoveled roofs, we shoveled snow for a living and we fixed roofs, and you know, there's just wouldn't be here. That's simple.
But he held his company together, and I mean, we're talking, I don't know, he probably had 100 employees altogether, you know, or some large number like that. And how he ever kept them going, I think a lot of it was just that he was good to them, and they were good to him back, you know, and he held it all together. But he's a tough guy. He's got that real tough side to him. That won't stop, just keeps on going, but he's also got the soft side where he's so compassionate.
This company has always been his family. He treats it like his family. He just seems to care about everybody in this company and their families, and just got a heart of gold. If I had to put it in a word, it's a heart of gold.
Oh, I mean, you know, he's a businessman, but he is he's just the most down-to-earth guy you could ever be around. I mean, to me, he's just like my best friend. I just can talk to him, I can tell him anything. I went to work for him, and you know how when you're working for somebody, or at least where I was, you always had somebody checking on you. You know, kind of watching you and making sure you was doing what you're supposed to do. Well, he hired me to work for him, and I just kept looking around, waiting, got to the point, almost to where I was going to call him up and tell him to come and interview me or do something, you know. But he just leaves you alone, he lets you do your job, and I like that. I mean, it took me a bit to get used to, but he don't bug you. He expects you to do your job, and he just lets you roll with it. he just takes some, and he sees somebody that needs help, and he just tries to find a way to help them. And if they need a job, he'll try and find a spot for them, or something like that. And and the Mexican people, we've got 3 or 4 Mexicans that work for us, and I mean, he loves them and he treats them good, and he's always helping somebody. People don't realize, the stuff that he does.
I recall a time that we were doing an interview for, we've been nominated for a family-owned business award, and Orluff always felt like he wasn't the best father he could be to his daughter and 2 sons. He always felt like he was just having to work so hard to keep his business afloat that he didn't spend enough time being a father. And I recall in this interview when they interviewed his sons, and his son said, he taught us how to work. He didn't just give us the company. He made us work in Las Vegas in the middle of the summer when it was so hot we couldn't stand it, and really taught us the value of how difficult working in construction was. And he was the best father in the world.
My father always taught us how to work. He always would take the opportunity and come out and work with us, and he would always create opportunities for us, me, Slade, and Carly, to work, either it be around the barns or be around the ranch and be with the horses. Or that time we all thought it was work, but what we learned is he was teaching us to plan for the future and be able to have those tools that we needed to be prepared and be able to have some edges on opportunities that would arise in the future. We'd be able to build our own home.
And when I heard them say this when they were interviewed, I knew that they meant it. And I know that he's been a wonderful example for his children. And he's been one of the best fathers there could ever be, because he really taught by example.
I remember my dad was telling me he was a workaholic, which he was, but I remember a couple of times he would say, golly, I wasn't around for him. It's like, Dad, you had to have been, because who taught me how to snow ski, water ski, play basketball, ride horses? It's very much why he'd get hard on himself of, that he wasn't there enough. But I don't think he realizes how much he was there for us when we were kids.
Some of the things that I really had fun in my childhood were going to Weber State basketball games and hanging out with my dad. We went all the time back with Bruce Collins and Todd Harper, number 44. That's still my number to this day.
It's just that experience that we were able to have together, and whether it happened 10 times or 200 times, I don't remember, but I remember, those moments that we had.
And so that really impresses me, because both of these boys are now in the family, and the company hasn't just been given to them. They've had to work really hard, and they still work really hard. So, and they always look to the example of their father. My dad taught me this, my dad taught me that, my dad told me this. And so I know that they carry that legacy with them, and it's very, very special to this company, what Orluff has done. So.
Literally from the time I was about 13, I was out working with my grandfather landscaping, Ridgemont condos, and which was a development my dad was doing. And I went from landscaping to framing to concrete. I even worked on an asphalt crew. I thought he hated me. Like, why would I have to work on an asphalt crew? But he told me, if you understand it enough so that when you're sitting in a meeting, you can be with a client or with a subcontractor and explain how it works. That was important for him. And then as I've moved up through the company, I believe I've worked in almost every position so that I could experience and understand what the position required. But I appreciate that experience, especially now. I have a 19-year-old boy. And I'm having to make those decisions. How do you raise them? But they need to learn how to work. And who'd do this in a movie, huh? That's what I think I appreciate most. Sorry. Is that he did teach me how to work. And the importance of not just work, but hard work. It was, he always taught us you need to be the first one in the trench and the last one out.
Orluff always was concerned about his kids. And he wanted to make sure that they learned how to work, and they learned how to work fair, and they learned how to work honest. And that was always in the back of his mind. And still to this day, now that he's a huge success, it's his concern. Not so much for his kids now, as for his grandkids. Are they being taught how to work and work in an honest, fair, humane way with other people? And that's a concern of Orluff's all the time.
All along, Orluff has always been interested in helping me out, and I know a lot of other people, and so I've always been grateful for Orluff for just that kindness and just for watching out for me, and I know he does that for a lot of other people.
He's the kind of guy that a handshake is all it takes. That's just as good as a 20-page contract. If he says he'll do something, he'll do it, always.
So he shows up and he's got this young crew, a bunch of high school kids, is about what it amounted to. Had Mike that was the superintendent on the job, and Slade and Rowdy, and I don't remember all of them, but all these kids, these young bucks that they were eager and they were aggressive and they worked long hours and they worked hard, and they spent the summer in Jackson Hole working. I think they worked 7 days a week, 12-hour days.
That job was pain, and Slade and Chet were out there too, and we were packing forms in and out of holes for an entire summer. And I just remember, it was like, this was grueling, miserable work. And inevitably every year Chet got hurt. Bad. Like he put a 16-penny nail through his sternum once, and he fell off the ladder way high in the sky, and incredible things. But I learned, we were young and we were all working so hard. And Orluff would come out there with his cowboy boots on and walk around and talk to us, and it was just like he was looking at us thinking, how do I build these young men into something? And it was hard, genuinely hard work, and I appreciated it, and it made me confident when I went into the Marine Corps, and when I went into the Naval Academy and other times in my life. I would look back and go, if I could work on that foundation crew, I can handle this. If I could work on that foundation crew, I can deal with that. And that went on. I still do that.
That's 26 years ago now that they were up here working on that, spent the summer. So to have that kind of loyalty in this day and age where most people have 6 or 7 jobs during their lifetime at least, to have those people stay speaks well of the culture that he's built into that company. Hires good people, treats them right, and doesn't expect unreasonable things out of them, but expects them to do right and treat people right.
Once you're in his life, you're always in his life. No matter what company he has, you'll see the same people because they're Orluff's people.
I reflect back on that work, and I want that same thing for my sons. Hopefully OSHA will allow it anymore, but my kids, I hope for their sake that they can have a job like that and a boss like Orluff that was, kind of just thought, you can do it, sucked it up, just kind of expected you to do it. It wasn't like he was out there pushing you. He just expected you to be there and to do that type of work and to push, and it was cool. And I enjoyed it a lot with Slade and Chet too, because I felt like I was part of the family.
He comes into you and he says, I've been thinking, and that's a sign that there's something really profound about to come out of his mouth.
I know when I'm talking to Orluff and he says, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but you're gonna get a gem for something, because he always downplays himself, but he's got the experience and the knowledge and the know-how to really get things done.
I think some people, if they first met Orluff, might think he's a little bit of a cowboy type and possibly not very deep. guy's deep. He's a deep thinker. He understands business. He understands human relations. Smart guy. So and he could, I suppose at times he could use that to his best interest in a business deal. You know, the guy that doesn't seem like he might maybe understand something, Orluff knows everything's going on. He's following it, and he's figured it out.
Because he likes to play like he's not a smart guy. Well, I'm telling you, he is a really smart guy. And his big line that he likes to use with people, I don't know everything, and I'm not sure I understand the answer, but I've been thinking. There you go with Orluff.
Orluff's one that will rise to a challenge.
We'd always wanted to ride in a Mark IV, which was back in 1974, the white Lincoln.
Only one American luxury car can have the highest resale value. This is that car, Continental Mark IV. Judge your car by our car.
So we were all, a bunch of us going to lunch, and so we stopped by there, and Orluff wanted to take one for a test drive. Well, the sales guy says, I'm not going to let you take one of those for a test drive. He says, you can't afford this thing anyway.
The salesman was older and kind of a nervous guy, and there was three of us young guys. Orluff drove, me and Ray got in the back, and we had the little side windows, the oval windows in the back looking out. And Ray and I were in the height of our glory because we always wanted to ride in one of these cars, you know. And we're driving around, and Orluff took it way down the freeway, and we come back, and it was lunchtime, and Orluff decided to go. He says, we got to go to lunch yet. So he heads over to one of the fast food restaurants and goes through the drive-thru. The salesman is just sweats pouring down his face. He's just can't even believe this is happening. We're in this leather interior, nicest car they're selling at the time. It was the state-of-the-art, you know, fancy cars. Orluff, we all ordered the hamburgers, and they got the fries and the fry sauce, and the guy is just, I just remember it so distinctly. He's just freaking out, just going, we got to get out of this car back to the dealership. He hands the sacks back to us. We eat the burgers in the car, driving. Orluff drives some more, comes back, get out. The salesman implied that Orluff couldn't afford the car.
And Orluff looks at him like, what makes you think I can? And when we were at lunch, he'd been saying that he was broke and he, needed to get some deals going because he didn't have any money. Orluff goes to the bank, arranges for a loan on the thing, gets it in cash, puts it in a brown paper bag, and goes back and walks in past the guy says, so are you back here yet? He's, yeah, but I'm not talking to you. And so he goes and finds another salesman, dumps the cash out on the guy's desk. Okay, I want to buy that Mark 1, Mark 2, or whatever it was. And the guy that had told him, no, you can't do that, he's just like...
He goes through certain phases. He was going, and he still is to some extent, but when he first really got into exercising, if Orluff decides to get into something, he will get somebody that's an expert to teach him.
Had an instructor that was telling him to do all of these different exercises against the wall and slide down the wall and sit and do all. He'd do it anywhere. It didn't matter where you were. And like John said, you could be at the swankiest golf club in the world and he'd be over against the wall stretching.
We were in Las Vegas. We were at his country club, golf country club, and it kind of sits on a hill, and so on the bottom basement floor you walk out and there's cement walls to the building, but you overlook it. But he came out and we kind of had a little time there waiting for Judy to come out. But he went up against the wall and just spread his arms and his legs out against the wall, and he was stretching against the wall as other patrons were coming out. But he just looked so odd.
So that's Orluff. I mean, he's just so, that's what I mean when I say self-confident. It's just whatever Orluff decides, that's what he does.
But he just is so comfortable with himself that he just like a gecko up against the wall. So, but that's just Orluff. He just anywhere, anytime, he just does his thing.
There's times Orluff can really embarrass me. And that was another thing I had to get used to. I wasn't used to a man that if you had a house full of company and he decided that he was tired, he goes to bed. And he may not even say goodnight. You just go, well, where's Orluff? You know? And that took me a while to get used to. Now I'm used to it. If he decides to read the newspaper, he reads the newspaper. If he decides to watch a TV program, it doesn't matter what else is going on.
We were skiing in Snow Basin, Utah, and of course, Orluff and Judy had announced they were getting married, and he and I were riding up the ski lift, and we just kind of had a moment there, and I just turned to Orluff and I said, "So, Orluff, you're really going to marry Judy?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And I said, "For sure, no second thoughts?" He goes, "No, I'm marrying her." And I said, "Well then, Orluff, you better hold on to your ass, because you're going to go for a hell of a ride."
Probably the first thing is Orluff is self-confident. That's probably one of the first things that drew me to him. He's very cognizant of the people around him and how they're doing. I feel like he's a very caring and generous person. Dry humor. You have to get used to him a little bit with the humor. And I don't know, he's fairly easy to be around, I think. I was working at Wyoming Downs Racetrack. He was racing horses there. I worked in the front office, so I took all the payments for all of the races and the horses that were entered. And every spring, or before we would open a couple of 3 weeks, we would hire in about 6 girls to work in the office with me, and I would pick one to work right in my office. I picked a gal this particular year in '86. Her name was Jody Lopez, and she was in the office with me, and I was single. I'd been single for about 3 years, and she heard me tell someone that I didn't go out with married men, and she says, "Oh, I've got this guy you should meet. He's divorced and you should meet him." Well, everybody always has a guy you should meet. Okay. I said, "Okay, that's nice. And what's his name?" She says, "His name is Orluff Opheikens." And I said, "What is an Orluff Opheikens?" I mean, what a name. I'd never heard anything like that. So anyway, about 2 weeks later, one of my duties was to go around and gather up the cash right after the races started so that there wouldn't be extra money laying around and tempt people, I guess. And I walked up to her station and she introduces me to Orluff Opheikens. And then it was probably a week later or 10 days later that another one of my things was I was to collect all bad checks and all bad visas or whatever. And I'm sitting there saying to Jody, how am I going to contact some of these people? And she says, "Well, who are they? You know, is there anybody?" And I started naming off 2 or 3 names, and she says, "Oh, he works for Orluff Opheikens." So the one man that I had to contact worked for Orluff Opheikens. She says, "I think he'd help you collect that, or maybe he'd help." So I called him, and he said, "Well, we should discuss that over lunch." And I don't know, it seemed like then whenever I walked out and was on the apron or anywhere, there was Orluff. And we just wound up. We had so many things in common. We had 3 children, we'd graduated the same year, our children were the same ages, except our youngest 2 were 1 year apart, and we just clicked.
I just liked him. He was taking my mom and moving her away from where I wanted to be, because I think I was going into my junior year, and Mom started dating him. I was actually working in Pinedale, so I wasn't around. I didn't meet him till they'd been dating a while, and I disliked everybody she dated. Let's get that straight.
I think what was hard on me was I really moved into his world because I had been in Wyoming for 11 years. I lived up there. My kids had gone to school up there, and so when I married Orluff, I moved to Ogden, Utah. And he had told me he had this little construction company, and I compared it to what my first husband had, which it was a little construction company. But when we got to Ogden, he knew everybody. Everybody knew Orluff, you know, and it was just hard for a little while to make the adjustment. And then it didn't help because I lost my son.
That I worked down here for the summers for Arno. Well, actually for Opheikens and Company. He had Opheikens and Company still at the time. And then I went back for my little brother was killed that summer. And I went back to Wyoming to do my senior year. After my senior year, I came back here.
Monty. He was my youngest, and I guess in my mind, I had one boy that had already graduated high school, one that was a junior, and Monty was just going to finish the 8th grade and start high school. And I guess in my mind, he would be with me. You know, he was going to be here. And so we lost him the day before he would have started high school. He flipped a four-wheeler, came down on him, on his head, and very sudden, of course. So it was really hard.
The saddest 2 years or something, I just can't even describe to you the sadness in Judy. It was just horrible, really terrible.
We'd only been married for 9 months, had moved in this house and lived in this house for 6 weeks. And when we lost him. And I don't know, it took me a while. Because of course I decided if I hadn't moved to Ogden, Utah, if I hadn't, you know, made some of the decisions I'd made, it wouldn't have happened. You know, I mean, you go through these stages, you know, of being sorry you did this, or being mad, or being upset, and I went through them all.
I've always said, you know, the only thing I could think of, if you ever seen a dog that's been beat into submission and they go curl up in a corner and they're just destroyed emotionally and mentally, that was Judy for a really, really long time.
It was hard on me watching the school bus go by every day that he should have been getting on, or, you know, it was, and the other kids that he would have been with, you know, so it's probably the most difficult thing I've ever been through in my life. I had gone over to a rental house to hang some curtains and was going to meet them at a certain time, and I got the phone call. But let me tell you about support. Orluff really supported me. He couldn't have been better. Orluff really, I couldn't have asked for a better stepfather for my children.
So that was a really awful time, and he was such a great kid. We were sitting out on the back porch the night before he was killed, and we just finished the house, and he was actually helping the landscape crew put in the landscaping and everything. So it was a good time. It was a lot of good times happened that summer. And this was right at the end of the summer. And I remember him leaning back, and he put his hands up like this, and I had finally become a good stepfather, not a scary stepfather. we had finally crossed the bridge, so to speak. And he leaned back and he said, "Boy, we got it made, don't we?"
He's just a good person. Very, very good person. That's all I can really say. Yeah, he's definitely one of the best men I know. When in doubt, I can call Orluff. You know what I mean? I can call O and ask him anything, and he'll tell me. I mean, he'll give me his insight, and it's usually pretty close. So, I took a lot of advice from him over the years. I've also been told advice over the years I didn't use and was sorry later. You know what I mean? But all in all, he wants everybody around him to do well. Everybody in his life. It don't matter if you're his neighbor, his son, cousin. He wants you to do well. You know? I really believe that about him.
Well, me and my mom, we've talked about, many times how our life would have been a lot different, if it wasn't for Orluff. Both with money and with life lessons and everything else. Well, I'd say the best thing that probably ever happened to me was her marrying him. It's my life's definitely a lot better than it would have been. I was headed down a whole different path when I was younger, and her marrying him got me around, a different way of thinking. But the best thing that happened to me was having him come in my life. He's been in my life longer than my real dad has. He passed away in '94, but I've actually known Orluff longer than my real dad, so it's been great.
That connotation that we grew up in, that Ogden was, the armpit of Utah, and that we were somehow second-class citizens, and that Weber State was, Harrison High College. I think those things had an impact on, I know they did on Orluff, but I think they had them on our generation. I think Orluff engendered that in me. And I think Orluff in his life demonstrated that with his commitment to the city, to the college, to providing opportunities for young people to, whether it's learn a trade or to go to school. If they needed help, Orluff was there.
He's a great community citizen because you see his fingerprints all over good, doing good. He invests in his community, he believes in his community, and if you had more people like Orluff in America, this would be a grand country.
Orluff, as all I think good business leaders do, hired a company to come in and analyze his organization to say, what do we need to do to get to the next level? And so they did a comprehensive study. They interviewed clients, they interviewed the leadership team, and came back with a recommendation.
Orluff doesn't need credit for all the good that he does. He wants the success, he wants the end result. And so everything you see him do it's what every good leader does. He doesn't leave fingerprints, but he leaves the results the way he would envision it.
And the recommendation was, for you to get to the next level, you need to fire yourself. And you need to put this person in charge of the organization, and you need to assume this other role, but outside of your current job. And he did it. And most people, with a very successful company, who like doing what they're doing as he did, would not have had the humility to do that. But they would have fired the consultant and went off and done what they wanted to do. But he did it.
And he's always had a vision of where he wants to end up. He's very deliberate. If you took every definition of leadership, Orluff has it, except there's one thing that's different about Orluff. He doesn't need the credit. He needs the results.
Orluff, a lot like my own dad, has some kind of ability to make you want to impress him, make you want to, next time you talk to him, when you're doing things in business, you're thinking to yourself, I gotta get this done because someday I'm gonna have lunch with Orluff and I want to be able to tell him this.
I was impressed with the commitment that he had toward Weber State too. He's been a real supporter of Weber State, and I thought it was particularly fitting that he received an honorary degree a couple of years ago from Weber, recognizing his contributions to the community, to the university, and his own personal growth. He certainly is has become a great success.
One of the first times I was with Orluff, we were in the Alumni Center with a group of business leaders talking about how we could build more support for higher education with our state legislature. And there was a little bit of hesitancy with the group, but Orluff stood up and said, everybody was sitting down as I recall, and Orluff stood up and said, well, if this is important for Weber State, I'm going to be in, and I'm going to be in all the way. And everyone kind of rallied around him at that point. And we've had a great working relationship with the legislature ever since, and the power that those business leaders gave to our cause, starting with Orluff and others that day, really has made a tremendous difference for Weber State.
Getting involved in a construction management program. He helped fund a lot of that because he believed that he wanted to hire the Weber State graduates. He had an allegiance to our area here in northern Utah. But to see him with his white hat, given the honor of an honorary doctorate, that's amazing for a young man that grew up a very simple life there on 8th Street. So couldn't have been more proud of my buddy Orluff to see him given that honor.
Weber State really is a better place because of the Arno construction family. In addition to building the Hearst Center, the Stewart Stadium Sky Suites, and our public safety building, Dale Campbell and Barbara Taylor have been the president of our Alumni Association. Arno has contributed back to support scholarships through the Alumni State Association and our construction management program. And then Orluff in particular has just shown great leadership of always being a Weber State advocate with the community and with the legislature and others. And it's just nice to have friends that are so genuine and devoted like the Arno construction team.
Well, the first time I met Orluff I was trying to help create a community board for historic 25th Street. I had asked Orluff to join the board, and he asked me a little bit about the board, etc. And I said, well, there's one issue here. It's not really an issue, but it's $2,500 a year, and we need a 3-year commitment. And boy, he laughed, and he said, I've got to be on this board just because I've always been asked to join boards, but I never had to pay to be on one. So I've got to figure out what this is all about. And that really started off kind of our relationship, and it's been a very good relationship ever since. And if it wasn't for Orluff, what we're standing in front of right now, wouldn't be possible. After I got into purchasing some of these buildings, the economy hit, and this building behind us sat vacant for quite a while, and I was frustrated with many things on this with this building. And I would go to and talk with Orluff about it, and I would always be expressing these frustrations. And one day at lunch, he just kind of looked at me and he's like, you really just got to stop complaining and start doing. And so I did. And with his help, we were able to bring this iconic sign and building back, and we're really excited. And he was instrumental in that.
Ogden's a unique community. It was a real boom and bust community. We had a huge rail economy for almost 100 years. At the turn of the century, we had more millionaires per capita in Ogden, Utah than any other city in the United States of America. In the 50s, the trains went away, and it really went through a really rough economic decline. And Orluff remembers both sides of that and was very instrumental in Ogden's rebirth. And if you look at what's happened with our Junction project and a number of others, they would not have happened if Orluff hadn't been committed and loyal to the community he grew up in.
There are very few people who have the warmth and also be the man and the strength, have the business feeling for it. He also comes from kind of nowhere, so that he inherited all of this, what he has, and his vision and how he talks about his employees and how he is with the grandchildren, how he's with the family, how he's to Judy. That is, to me, it's almost what else do you have in life? And he enjoys that really to the fullest, and that's what I admire.
I think maybe the best story is maybe the way that we met Orluff. And the way that we met Orluff was Erica's dad was going through a time where he needed to sell his place. And it was a difficult time for all of us, especially knowing that we were going to lose this place. It was a place that he'd put a lot of time and effort into.
My dad was going through a bankruptcy, and he was losing his ranch, and we had an opportunity to buy it back. We had some investors lined out to buy back the ranch, and it wasn't quite going the way we planned. And Orluff came to my husband and I and said, let's cut these other people out and let's buy your ranch, because I can see how this could really help the community and help my family.
Is really what it is. They want to help kids. They want to help. It's for grandkids. It's for a training area for those kids to learn how to be responsible, to learn how to be, to learn skills.
One of his dreams and goals is to take kids who might not have that opportunity to ride, and he gives them an opportunity to do things that they probably wouldn't get otherwise.
Looking back now 5 years or so, I think that was his whole master plan, was to have a place, and I think Erica was a part of this, because Erica's really good with the kids, of integrating all of these ideas and these adventures with the kids, and then and build their confidence and build their skills and build their abilities.
He doesn't want anybody to be a prima donna. He wants his grandkids to throw the saddles, to muck the stalls, to clean up, and to just really learn work ethic there.
We've kind of been on this little journey over the years to build that up.
The quality that I tell Orluff he has is I tell him that he's very Christ-like, and that really makes him cringe when I say
makes
that.
him nervous.
It makes him feel a little uncomfortable, but I think that is a great way to describe him. Just it doesn't come from selfish reasons, or he just is really looking out for the well-being of others in his community.
Fun thing that I enjoyed was going to the horse races. I know my dad thought I didn't like it, but I loved it. I loved that I knew all about the horses and that our trainer could teach me. And I loved going back to the stands and betting with these guys that I thought were really old because I was just a young kid. And I used to win and take all their money. It was great.
We've been here about 4 years. So I met Orluff right before we moved in here. And the first time I met him, we met to see if it all kind of fit, and we decided it would fit, and we worked together, and we've enjoyed helping Orluff, and we've really gotten a lot of help from Orluff, and we feel really grateful for that.
At first meeting Orluff, my first description of Orluff would be intimidating. But after getting to know him, very kind, very soft, very generous. But yeah, the first couple weeks I was here and he was out here picking rocks in the arena while I was riding, it was a little scary. Doesn't say much. But what he does say, you better listen to, because it's got meaning.
Orluff to me is, for one, he's a great role model. He's one of the top people that I call when I need help with something. If I were to describe him as something, he's someone that I would describe as a grandpa figure to me. And to her as well. He was one of the first people that I called when I found out with her, and he was so excited, and he couldn't wait for her to be here, and so that to me was really special, that he cared about her. So his ability to care for people and stuff, he's a great person.
I would say that he's very kind and generous.
Don't be the girl who has the boyfriend who saddles her horse for her and she just shows up. You clean your own stall, you saddle your own horse, you brush your own horse. And that's something that kind of translates into life too. You take responsibility for the joys that you're given.
I mean, I've learned a lot from him that he probably doesn't even know I've ever learned, just by keeping my ears open.
Yeah, I think it's so funny, we were talking about this morning, breakfast too. So he has these beautiful kids who in turn have had beautiful children and beautiful grandchildren and everything. And that's a big way to make an impact on the world too. But he has 1,000 other children like me who he's had a huge impact on in one way or another. So, yeah, he's got a heck of a legacy.
Really good at connecting with people, getting them involved in an organization, seeing a vision, and really uniting individuals around a greater cause, and then kind of keeping them focused on that cause.
Someone that I could always turn to, ear to listen to, and good advice to give, almost becoming that father that I no longer had.
I've never known anybody more honest, more sincere, more reliable, and more dedicated to his family and his friends and his hometown. I've never known anybody that I admire more than Orluff, and the way he has conducted himself and the success that he has made.
For me, Orluff is a successful man, not only by the measuring of the quantity, by the measuring of the quality. And that's what triggered me to become his friend, because I saw those values. So the honesty level is unbelievable for me. I think that he has the integrity, he likes the fun, he likes to be sometimes adventurous, so he likes the adventure, he is curious. I think that the curiosity definitely is part of his life, and has a lot of values, family values, love to his family, love to his kids. I always hear about his grandkids and his relationship with his sons. So, as I said, it's not something that you see every day.
That even though he's gotten really, really quite rich, he's always been a friend, always called me up. We go to lunch together, and he and I enriched career. So, yeah, he's never changed. Never thought he was really better than anybody else.
He has a story for everything because he's done it. And he's not one of those people that pushes you, well, you need to go do this, you need to go do that. It's, well, I did this. This is what happened to me. I love my grandpa, I respect him to death, and there's not anything that I wouldn't do for him.
Las personas ocupan algo. Cuando uno las conoce, si sabe que ocupa a alguien algo, él siempre apoya a las personas en cualquier aspecto.
Maria thinks that Orluff, she thinks the same way I think. She says Orluff always watching what the people needs to help them, even if they don't know them, if he don't know them really well. And Maria says he has a very great heart to treat the people, yeah.
But there's something very special about Orluff Opheikens that I would not want to go through. When I have rest of my life, I would not want to go through the rest of my life without knowing Orluff Opheikens.
I love him. And I hope all his grandchildren have the same feeling. Warm, close feeling.
He's a great guy, and he helps a lot of people, family, non-family. So a really inspiring, great man.
Countless times I can tell you of people who were down on their luck, who were hurt, who needed something, and Orluff was there. He didn't do it for recognition. In fact, most people don't even know some of the great things that Orluff really did for people. But he was a builder of people. And maybe that's the greatest compliment of all.
But it's like he's taught me and told me, I do it because I can. He's in a position in life, financially because of the work that he's done and investments that he's made, that he can help other people, and he does it in a way that he doesn't look for credit. There are a few people who do a lot of great things, but they always want to be recognized. Orluff never wants to be recognized for whatever the good deed was, or he genuinely does it because he can and because he cares.
Just the name of the company gives you an idea of how Orluff thinks. It wasn't Opheikens and Randall. It was Randall and Opheikens. Orluff was putting the other guy first before himself in it. that's kind of the way he thinks.
Orluff, I would consider in the top 5 people that I know, as far as someone that you can trust, an honest person, a friend. You know, he'd be in the top 5.
My grandpa is without a doubt one of the best men that I know. And spending time with him is something that I would do every day if I could.
The longer you live, the more you realize how important those friendships are. And cherish the fact that got a handful of people like that we feel that way about. Orluff and Judy are right at the top of the list.
All he cares about is let's work together. Let's see if we can make life better. He's a person who just looks for the good in people. That's all.
I mean, I come across things and I go, really? He did that? And I didn't even know it. And I know there's people out there that he's reached out to and that aren't even a part of our direct family. And I think there's people out there who we don't even know that he's still out there helping. And that's just who he is. And that's he's been given opportunity to be able to do that for people, and that's just his character. I know the things that he does for me has just, you know, he's always been there for me personally and my family.
And he helps teach you along the way. He's full of great advice, and you'd be wise to sit down and listen to it. My dad's a great example of love, devotion, and a partnership.
When I think of Orluff Opheikens, I think back a long time ago when he and I first became friends. I think he's been a great friend for over 40 years. I think he's a very honest person, a very caring person, a person that does a lot of help for others behind the scenes that you never know about. And I think and I know him to be a friend that I could turn to no matter what the situation would be. And I would have utmost confidence in him as a friend and a person that would help me in any cases.
I think personally, Orluff is extremely loyal. You've probably heard that expression used about him before. He's very trusting, he's very loyal, and he cares about people on an individual basis, not just what can you do for me, but his attitude is, thank you for being a part of my life, and let me help you if you need help. I always know in the back of my mind that if I ever had a personal situation that Orluff would be able to help, I know that I could call him and he could help me, and he would help me. He's just that kind of a guy.
He's a man of unquestionable integrity. Behind the scenes guy. He does not like you to tell who he is and what he does. He just wants to be Orluff Opheikens and forget the rest of it. That's why we get along. So many people have to accentuate their success and their integrity and all that stuff. He's not that person.
Orluff has become good at all these different aspects of his life, not because he was super intelligent, not because he had a Ivy League education, none of that. It's because he wanted it so badly that he was willing to work very hard for it and pay the price. And he would do whatever it took. He would study, he'd learn things, he would practice over and over. And because of that, he was able to have, I think, pretty much all the important things in life that he sought for.
We still shake our head about how this man is so kind to everybody and everything he comes across. He's a special, special person.
And I don't, both my dad and Orluff, I always look back on that, and I have a 15-year-old now, and I'm about to let him drive a car. And those two guys, the moment I got my driver's license, I mean, literally, it came off. It was still melty and wet. I stuck it in my thing, drove on my wallet, drove off onto Washington Boulevard and drove straight to Magna. Got on the freeway in my little car and drove all the way to Magna and did that every morning at 6-something in the morning and home every night. And it was like they just both expected that that's what you do. And it wasn't even a concern. And they, I learned a lot from that, and I learned a lot. I know Orluff put me on Jeff, I think his name was Jeff Hawk, on that crew for a reason.
Very interesting that he had the conversation with me that said, I've been through what you're going through. I know you're not okay, and it's okay that you're not okay. And it was interesting because during that divorce, he called me one day, said, hey, I'm going down to the boat show. It's not something I really wouldn't have been that interested in doing. He goes, you're going with me. Wasn't even really an option, but picked me up. We went for the day. He just cares. He's just that kind of guy. He really, truly cares about the people around him and what they're going through. And those are qualities that business owners like him don't have to have. They don't have to have those qualities. They don't have to care about the people.
I got to tell you, when I think about all the people that I know that I've bumped into that have associated with Orluff, getting work done by him or one thing or another, it's just terrific.
He's just a good country guy, just so natural with the life. Doesn't put on a show.
I think he would do anything for me if he could, and I'd do the same for him, you know. That's just the bottom line. I mean, that's how I feel, and I think that's how he feels, so.
Great person to be around. Your life is gonna be better because you know Orluff Opheikens. He's always got a smile on his face. Always smiling, willing to help you.
He's just enjoyable to be around. And if I had to tell his grandkids anything, it'd be that they're lucky to have him for a grandpa.
I really enjoy watching my dad be a great grandpa. When we were kids, we got a lot of love and attention, but he worked a lot, so he was working hard for us, and it's so fun to see how much time he has now to spend with his great-grandkids.
I remember my grandpa Opheikens, who was the best grandpa in the world. I loved him, and he was always there for me. As a little kid, me and Tommy taking us to the store, doing everything we did, and I just thought he was the neatest guy in the world. And turns out my dad turned out to be my grandpa Opheikens. I've never seen a grandpa who cares so much about those grandkids. I mean, he has so much to do and so much weight on his shoulders with R&O construction and all the things that he has to do at the farm, and he's doing nothing but always thinking about, how do I get these kids up on the mountain going skiing? How do I get them on horses?
He's a loyal person, and he's, you know, and if he tells you something, he tries to carry it through, you know. Well, he comes and gets me and takes me to the gym, and we stay there for about an hour, and then we go home.
If I had to describe Orluff, for those people who don't know him, they may think he is hard-headed and, you know, really hard to, you know, get to know, but he's not. He will give his shirt off his back. He'd help you in any way. He's a good friend. He's very knowledgeable. I've learned a lot from him. I've grown and become a better person overall, you know, just by talking and talking to him. And he may think that I'm training him, but I think he was helping me more than anything else.
He's just a good person, you know. I think, you know, I'm his mother, so I think he's a good person. And he's good to his family. You know, he's really kind with them, and they all love him, you know, because he is a good person.
Whatever you see, that's what he is. There's no phoniness there. There's no made up. He doesn't act different to you than he does to me or to anybody else. And he's not afraid to, if he thinks your hat's ugly, to tell you, that hat's kind of ugly, you know. So he's pretty straightforward with everything.
He's always been there for me. You know, he's really special.
I can honestly tell you that my father is the best man I've ever known, as far as who he is, what he's taught me to be. I hope one day to be able to live up to everything that he has taught us to be. And, you know, I love him more than anything in the world. I don't know of anybody who's been there for me more than my dad.
Oh, he's the greatest. You know, you couldn't ask for a better son.